for all the people out there that are saying, oh, you got to have Macintosh to be able to do, create good videos and audios. No. No. I mean, this does, basically everything that I could ever want it to do. Um, I'm not saying that the Mac guys got some software that might not do better job on professional videos, but for what I do, this is more than enough.
Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I wanted to show you why I believe Kdenlive is going to be the best video editor still to come for Linux operating systems in the year 2017. So to get things started, I've got my list of things we're going to cover over here, including quick transitions with decent live preview performance. So if we go ahead and drag and drop some video clips onto our timeline here, that's all well and good. It's a little bit different than a video editor like Adobe Premiere in that you don't have your clips side by side if you want to do a transition between them. Instead, you put them on top of each other. That's just a minor gripe though. And if you want to do a quick fade between them, you can click on that border between the two, click to add a transition, and now with the time that these two are overlapping, it's created a fade effect between those. Now the rendering performance is actually not too bad for that. Kdenlive is also remarkably stable, and that kind of goes double for a Linux application. One of the problems with many Linux apps is that sometimes they just crash for no reason. OpenShot 2.1 is another video editor that I took a look at the other day, and I do like where they're going with OpenShot, but there are some performance issues that are really affecting the app, and that applies to things like rendering these effects. Kdenlive, once again, pretty stable, haven't really had those kinds of issues there. Now, if you look down here on the video track, and you would see the same thing in audio tracks too, you have audio waveforms displaying on the actual timeline. That is incredibly useful. If we went over here to about 20 seconds in, you'll notice there's a point in time where I'm not talking in this other video there. And when you're not talking for 20 seconds or so, you probably want to cut that out. Those kind of periods of time are just going to happen because if you're doing screencasting like I am, sometimes you need to stop and get your thoughts in order. So in order to take care of that, I can select the track, go ahead and press Shift-R to make a cut, go over here and do another Shift-R. Now, it may be that that was actually a custom hotkey, but if you want to customize your hotkeys, you can go up to Settings, Configure Shortcuts, and set whatever hotkeys you want for a ungodly amount of different options here. And you can see, speaking of options, a lot of these things over here, those are effects. There are a lot of audio and video effects that you can apply to your clips inside of Kdenlive. So if I want to apply something here, I can go right-click, Add Effect, and go through these hordes of menus. Now, I don't really like how it's set up because it kind of makes it way overwhelming. Like, who's going to really go look for the Hermes filter if they don't even know what that is? A lot of these effects probably only the most hardcore of video editors are ever going to touch. But the fact that they're there, the fact that you have a lot of options available to you in addition to the common stuff like fading and maybe muting your audio, it's a good thing to have. I think more is almost always better, unless it just gets too ridiculous. So let's talk a bit about timeline snapping. If I go ahead and hit the delete key to knock out that part of that clip where I was talking, or I wasn't talking rather, and I don't need that anymore, I can just left click on this, and you see it snaps to the line where I have the timeline currently selected. It also pretty easily snaps over here to the previous part of that clip so that they are neck and neck and there's no black space in between. You also notice if I move this clip that's on the video 2 track over by where those tracks are ending or starting, it also has that same kind of thing going. Now, having the fade or dissolve effect move with you, sometimes that would be a good thing. That can also be annoying. If you just want to get rid of it, the effect entirely, and worry about adding the transition back in later, right-click, hit delete. Not really much of an issue, so I can maybe go down here, add in that transition effect, and maybe I can have one over here too. Now, one of the parts of this program that may cater a bit more towards the professional video editors is you can have queued up rendering. So if we go to render, or we could just hit Control Return to get there, you'll notice there's a job queue. So you can have 5 or 6 projects that you're working on, you queue them all up, and before you go home for the day, you could just kind of have all of them render overnight. You can even have it shut down the computer after you're done rendering. And this could be useful for YouTubers as well. If you don't want to wait for the rendering to be done and you more want that all to take place while you're not at the computer because you don't need to be there, that's a definite plus. And not a lot of other video editors, and I can't think of a single other one on Linux that actually has that feature. So it's nice to have, definitely. If we look down here at the timeline once again, you'll notice it's separated into video tracks and audio tracks. Some of the other editors just have tracks, or they don't even label it at all, and that can be a little bit confusing. I think having like specific tracks that are for MP3s or maybe post-production voice recordings and that kind of thing that you can just kind of slam down here is nice to have. It is a little bit weird that the video tracks can also have audio on them if you were using Adobe Premiere, which is Windows. Actually, Adobe Premiere is also on Mac, but if you were using it there, then it would automatically separate the video and the audio to separate tracks. Now, you can, of course, separate it here, but yeah, it's a little bit weird there that you can have both on one. But once you get used to it, it's perfectly fine. Just acknowledge that if you see the waveforms on your video track, that means there's audio there. And you can always just mute it directly anyway. So when I like to get attached to a particular application, I often like to change the theme of it, make it more mine. And often that might mean applying a dark theme to it. You can actually theme Kdenlive. The reason I haven't themed it here is just because it's the newest version. We're looking at 16.08. But you can see here, theme, configuration, and once you install themes, which is basically dragging and dropping them into a directory, you'd have extra ones available here. And you can search online for those. It's not too complicated. It works about the same as theming any other app, but that's a minor plus for me as well. And if we go up here to the top, you'll see download new wipes as well as render profiles and some other options. It's actually kind of cool because you can actually grab community-created stuff here. A bunch of different wipes that you may not have in the default Kdenlive, but you can certainly grab for free from online. Now, this is one of those features probably a ton of people don't really use, but I think the idea here that you can kind of get it to be more of a community project and share small pieces of work like a transition with other people is really nice. I think it's worked out well for suites like LibreOffice and Microsoft Word for those kind of document creation tools, but having that in a video editor is also nice, and I like where they're going with that. Now, the last nice to have I'd like to point out is that there's actually screencast recording in Kdenlive. It's probably one of the lesser known features, but I can go to Show Record Control. You can actually see that you can record video and audio here, record button. Now, you may need to actually play a bit with the settings to get this to work properly. So we can go to Configure Recording. And when we're here, let's see here. Yeah, so when we're here, you may need to play a bit with the encoding profiles. And it can be scary to a brand new user because the settings here are text-based. So it's kind of like getting your hands dirty with the terminal. But yeah, there's threads online that can help you get this kind of thing set up. And you can definitely screencast with both video and audio, optionally a webcam, straight within Kdenlive. And that's a cool thing to have. You can see, obviously, I'm using OBS to record this screencast. It's just a more full-functioned tool and more specific to that task. But I do think having the screencasting option inside of Kdenlive is a nice plus. So that's going to be it for my list of reasons for Kdenlive being the go-to video editor in 2017 for Linux operating systems specifically. If I was using Windows or Mac, probably would stick with Adobe Premiere, but hey, that's also a paid application. So when you're talking about free open source software, I don't think you can get too much better than Kdenlive. It's pretty sweet. I like to use it whenever I'm on Ubuntu. So if you haven't, go ahead and give the newest version, 16.08, a shot, and I will see you in my future videos. I've been Chris. Thank you for watching.
Kdenlive is a video editor for Linux. It is a free and open source software that has been around already for a while and has received lately a bug fixing update. So it is very stable and incredibly powerful and easy to use. To get it, you can search in your distribution repositories. You should have it. Many Linux distributions already have it. Or you can go to their website. It's kdenlive.org, and you can see instructions there to download for many Linux distributions, but also FreeBSD and Mac OS if you want. Once you have it installed, and when you run it for the first time, you will be greeted with this configuration wizard that will walk you through the basic configurations. So I have modules, some available codecs. I'm click on next. Don't worry about it too much. Video standard is the resolution and the frames per second of your video. Also, don't worry about this too much. You can change later on. Some default configurations where Kdenlive will save your files. Be sure to activate crash recovery, the autosave function, in case anything goes wrong. If you have a camera connected to your computer, you will see it here and you'll be able to import video from it. And then you check your system, everything is okay. I'm going to click on finish. Chances are that your windows here are all squeezed, so just move them. I like to have a video bigger. I don't need a description, so I'm going to uncheck. Just right click on the bar to see the menu appear. And here I have the main window of Kdenlive. Let's take a look at it. On the first window you have your media, your video, audio tracks and pictures, images. On the second space you have your effect list and transitions. We will see them in details later on. On the third window we have a monitor to watch the videos or the clips. And at the bottom you have the timeline. Timeline is where you put your clips to rearrange them, and you'll have your final result down on the timeline. The first thing you should do, this is a good practice, is to save the file. I'm going to save here as Kdenlive Tutorial. And this allows also for the auto-save function to work. If you haven't saved your file first, it won't auto-save. So now we can start to work on Kdenlive. First thing to do is to import some media. I have prepared some sample material here. I'm going to import everything: audio, video and pictures. So once you have your clips imported, you can just drag them and put them on the timeline. Put them on any position you want them. Once you have them on the timeline, you can also, of course, drag them around, and you will just position them the way you want. Once you have them in position, you can see here at the edges of the clips that you have some glowing things that appear. And at the bottom here, you will see what it means. You'll see a helper. So this is crop from start. So I can click on the edge and make it bigger, smaller, or go back to the original size. At the top you have a glowing circle. You can add fades. So keep in mind that these fade in and fade out are audio effects. So it's just going to fade the audio. Fade from black, for example, is a video effect, not this one. And here at the bottom you have add to click a transition. So you can click here and now a standard dissolve transition has appeared. At the bottom here of the timeline you can select different tools. For example, the razor tool. It's a tool to cut your clips at different points. You have also the spacer tool. It is very nice if you want to insert a clip in the middle. You can move several clips, everything that goes after. You move, you put your clip in the middle, then you can move it back in. Always go back to the selection tool though, because this is what you do most of the things with. Then you have a zoom. You can click to zoom into details when you're doing some editing. You can also hover your mouse and use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. We have seen that here I have created a transition, so let's take a look at it. The transition is marked by this, looks like a clip that I can also drag and resize. I should place it between the two clips that I want to apply the transition. Here I'm using a dissolve, so I want the clips to overlap and slowly dissolve into one another. So I select here the position, and I can play the clips to see here one dissolving into the other. On this window on the middle, I have the effect type. I can choose a different effect and also tweak it. Actually, dissolve was a good one for this. You can also add some transitions by right-clicking on a clip and selecting Add a Transition. I'm going to add a dissolve here too. Sometimes when you're working with it, you're not satisfied. You can also just select it and type the delete key on your keyboard. If you happen to apply, for example, a transition here to the bottom clip, you will see that the transition will appear here at the bottom, and it will not work because it will not be between the two clips. So just drag it at the correct position, and now the effect works very nicely. Apart from the transitions, you can also add some effects. So I'm going to click on the effect list tab. I have selected here a fun effect. It's old film. I just drag it onto the clip I want to apply. I choose the pointer. I come here to preview, and it looks like an old movie. If I want to remove the effect, I have here the X button. Just click on it and you removed the effect. If you have the effect applied, you can tweak it here with the slider, just dragging it, or entering the number manually and pressing on enter. An effect also that is worth mentioning is the speed effect. You can search here for speed, drag it on the clip. So I have a blur on top and the speed effect here at the bottom. You can accelerate your clip and make it play twice as fast as it originally is. You can see on the timeline that the clip is half the size that it was at the beginning, of course, but because now it's speeded up. So just take a look. The effect is twice as fast as it was before. Now, with the two effects that I have added to this clip, I have also tweaked it. I can save the effect if I have tweaked it. I can reset the effect if I don't like what I did. And I can also create a group. A group is a group of several effects. So the speed that I can just drag and drop to select the order, the speed is into the group, this new group that I have created, that combines a blur and a speed effect. And I can also save the group. Kdenlive will prompt for a name. I'll call Speed Blur, and I save it. On my effect list, I have now a custom folder in which I have my speed blur. This speed blur is an effect that I can apply now to other clips. It's already present, so let me go back. Speed blur, and there it is. Another speed blur on that one. You've heard there was a notification. I saw here at the bottom that the effect was already applied. It's always good to take a look here at the bottom. It says what's happening. It sends you messages through here. Then here on my timeline, I want to add some titles. I'm going to choose the spacer tool. I'm going to move here a little bit. And I'm going to place now, going back to the selection tool, to add a title at the beginning. Then I come to project menu and add a title clip. This is the window where you can create titles. I have here already the add text tool selected. I just click anywhere. I can start typing. It is very small, so I'm going to select it and make it much bigger. I can change the font. We can put something more fun here. I can also center the title using these buttons. This is to align horizontally, align vertically, to have it right on the middle. I can change the color of the text. I can choose a different color for the background. Here I have a black background with a 0 opacity, meaning that it is transparent. But if I click here, I can make it semi-transparent so I can see what color it is. I can choose something else. Here I get a title and I just click OK, and the title gets added to my media here. So I just drag it onto the timeline. Then I go to the edge and drag it to fit the space. Now I come to the project monitor. I come back. I want to add here a fade in and fade out from the clip to make it a smooth transition. You can see here that it is a fade from black. A very small transition here at the end too. And let's just preview it. My title comes in. It's a rather long title. I could make it short. I'll do that. I can also double click on a title to edit it. I'm going to add an image. Then place it and save my title. Now I have the image appearing here. Okay, so this was the basic editing process. Now that the clip is, let's say, ready, I can render it. So the render button is here at the top, and rendering basically means to gather all the clips on the timeline into one single file. So the output file will be here. I'm going to call it delete me. I can choose a different profile here. Here on the encoder threads, you can choose on how many threads the encode will be done. Threads are what make multi-core computers work faster. For the last years, about every computer comes with a multi-core architecture, so many people will benefit from having many encoder threads. Then you just click here on the render file, and the rendering will start. Now there's a progress bar showing me how long it will take to process the video, and it will be located at this path here. Let me just fast forward this. Once the rendering is finished, you can just go to the Kdenlive folder, and you will see here the final result that I'm just going to delete. Alright, so these are the basics. With this you should be able to do some basic editing. You could just jump in and start having fun with Kdenlive, but there is much more awesomeness to Kdenlive, so why not take a look? Let's just review what we have done and learn a little bit more about it. On the first window, we haven't seen here the tab at the bottom. These are the project notes. Project notes is not really technically something very amazing, but it's really practical just to take notes about your project. So you can say this is a Kdenlive test experiment. Then if you want to add a note about a particular time, let's say for example here I place here the position at 40 seconds. I right click on the note and I can insert current time code and say here starts the transition. Now I can watch the transition, but if I click again on the link, let's say this is blue like a link, if you click again on it, you'll be taken back to where the note starts. On the second window we have seen effects and transitions. Now let's learn about keyframes. Keyframes are basically a way to make the effect more intense or less intense over the time. While the clip is being played, you want an effect to be stronger or lighter. So let's choose the blur effect. For example, I'm going to apply the blur effect to this clip. I can see on the monitor that it is all blurry. I can make it even more blurry. But you see, when you change here, all the clip will get more or less blurry. With keyframes you can determine at which point the clip is more blurry and at which moment it is clearer. So you just double click on the clip, you can see that a point appears, and double click on several different locations here, and then you just drag these points to mark the intensity of the blur. So when I come back at the beginning, it will get very blurry, go up here, and then go back to the normal view. So the blur is now intensifying, getting at its peak, and then again we're going back to the normal view. You can see on the effects that you have the keyframes that are written here in numerical value. You can change them manually. If you want to have a very precise control over the position of this keyframe, you can set it to a different time or the different intensity, and you can also set them more manually here on the timeline. On the third zone here, where we have our monitor, let's take a look at some of the buttons. You have set zone start. The zone is this blue thing here at the bottom. You can also see the zone here on the timeline. On the timeline, I can just get to the edge and drag to set a different zone. You can see also here at the top that the zone has gone to all this length. And the zones are interesting because you can play only one selected zone. Here you have a drop down menu and you can loop one zone or play one zone. When you're doing some work on a detail, it is good to set a zone to a small part that you're editing and, for example, loop this zone just to be sure that this part got really the way you want it. So the buttons here about the zone are to set the zone when, for example, I just want to set the zone to start here. So I set the position there and I click on start the zone. Then I can go to the end. I want the end to be here, and I click on this button, the zone end gets there. Then you have the classical rewind, forward. You can resize the window. You can set the volume. You can set the position on time, frame by frame. You can also do this with the arrow keys on your keyboard. Go forward frame by frame. And here we have the tabs also. Well, we have seen clip monitor. If you just select a clip here on the timeline, you can preview it. The other tab is the project monitor, and there is the record monitor. So this is in case you have a camera connected to your computer. You can import from here. Alternatively, you can record what happens on your desktop by choosing the screen grab. Screen grab will use the Record My Desktop program to record what's happening on your desktop, and then you can just use it, then edit it on Kdenlive. So now let's take another look at the timeline. Timeline has here 3 video tracks and 2 audio tracks. You can rename them. Just click and select the name of the track. You have some buttons to lock the track. Once you have applied all the effects and it is perfect, you can lock the track to prevent changes. You can mute or hide the track clicking on these buttons. At the top you can make every track larger or smaller. I think the default is just nice. We have already seen the tools here at the bottom, the selection, razor, move. Here you have the option fit zoom to project. If you click on it, it will zoom and get an overview of the whole project. This is a very nice feature. I think I've told you already you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. Here you have also some extra options that is nice to know about. Split audio and video automatically, show video thumbnails, show the audio tracks, and snap This is when you bring clips very close together. Some people might want to have a very fine-grained control. Some people will like it to snap, so you just get closer and it snaps right at the position. Once you have done some work on some clips like this, you might want to group them together. So to do this, you just select clips, clicking on the control on your keyboard. You select all the clips, right click, and group the clips together. Now when you move one of them, all of them will move along. You see I didn't choose the transitions here, so they stay on the same place. I can just click on the control again to select them, and group them together. If you right click, you can ungroup them again. Okay, so enough for the interface. Now let's take a look at some really nice features in Kdenlive. Here in the project menu, you have online resources option. Online resources is a place to search for video and audio and images that are basically free to use. So if I choose, for example, here bird, it will search online sounds of birds. Here I have already a lot of bird sounds. I can preview them on the right, just clicking on the preview, and I can import it into my computer and into Kdenlive. I'm going to put this on music. It's downloading. Now I come here to the add clip button. I go to music where I have downloaded the sound, and I can add it to my project. So the online resource is a very practical way to get some free media. On the same menu you have here Clean Project. Clean Project is also very practical because once you have finished your video, you may not have used all the media that you have imported. When you select Clean Project, you will just be removing from your project all the files that you are not using. So let me show this to you. I'm going to save project, Clean Project, remove unused clips, yes, and now you see I have cleaned it up. Only the clips that I have effectively on my timeline are on my projects. I'm going to undo this because I need it. You have also here on the monitor the option to switch the monitor to full screen. So when you want to watch the final result, for example in full screen, you put your project monitor on to the beginning, to the monitor menu, and switch monitor to full screen. You can also put the application in full screen on the settings menu and the full screen mode, and the application will go on full screen. Now that we are on the settings menu, you can see also other online resources that are the download new wipes, for example. So let's choose this. What we're doing is we're searching for wipe effects. So these are wipe effects that have been created by other people and they're sharing them online. You can download them here. You can download render profiles, new project files, title templates. This run configuration wizard is the one when you start the program for the first time, if you want to run it again at some point. On the view menu, Once you have set your layout as you want, you can save the layout. So you have save layout as standard. I'm going to click OK. So when I mess up here, I can mess up my project. Then I go back to the view menu, load layout, load standard, and I go back to the layout that I had. On this layout, you can see at the top of the Windows button that make this window become a floating window, and then you can place the floating window on other places on the project. So take advantage of this. You can take a window and put it in the way that you want, really, between two windows, inside a window with another tab at the bottom, also here on the timeline, for example. And once you get to a result that you like, go back to the view, save layout as. You can save as a second layout and then load different layouts here. I'm going back to the standard layout. Once you have finished tweaking your layout, you can also remove those little buttons here. One way of doing it is right-clicking here at the bottom. So you just right-click here where there are no tabs. Then when you have all your project completed, you have it rendered, you have it published, you won't touch on it again, but you want to keep it for further reference, you can come to the project menu and archive the project. Archiving a project is good because you can use compression to put all the files into one single file. It will take less space, but you can open it and have the complete project back again the way it was. Click on archive and the archive will be created. And there's also a lot of other interesting things to do with Kdenlive. You can do stop motion capture if you have an HDMI camera connected. You can take one picture at a time and then join them together to make it simulate movement. You can transcode clips if you just want to import a video and output it into a different format. You can also use Kdenlive to do that. You can use Kdenlive also to do some chroma key effects to add, let's say, backgrounds that are moving, make really studio effects with a green background. I'll put some links to tutorials that do just that. Then on the render window, apart from the file rendering, you have also the option websites to render files and publish them to websites, lossless quality, mobile devices, DVDs. Can create a DVD in here. Then some other interesting features are the selected zone. If you want to render only a selected zone, we have learned about the zones here. The blue portion here of my timeline is selected. Once you start using Kdenlive regularly or for extended periods of time, you will notice that there are some very nice shortcuts to help you be more productive. So the first shortcut is the spacebar to play or pause a video. You can use here on the timeline the shortcuts X to select the razor tool, M to select the spacer tool, and S to select the selection tool. You can also cut a clip without going to the razor tool, just by positioning on the middle of the clip and then pressing R. And now you have your clips in two. So this is it for Kdenlive. We have seen a lot of things and a lot of possibilities that Kdenlive offers. And this is it. Thanks for watching. and see you next time.